Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is Stephen Flynn saying some really stupid things again and trying to sell an idea to the SNP that only the most cultish of their group will actually fall for. Because it's daft, right? And it makes no sense. So Stephen Flynn was recently interviewed by, I think it was yesterday, Peter Smith, the journalist for ITV. Now, Stephen likes to waffle, and Peter Smith, the journalist, doesn't like people waffling, and he's a great journalist, and he's not the type of journalist that asks a question and lets the interviewee fly away in, other direction that they want. He pulls people back in, and I've seen him do so on numerous occasions, and I wish more journalists were like Peter Smith. So anyway, in this interview, he promised that Scotland would have an independence vote, i.e. a referendum, within 5 years if the SNP win a majority in Scotland. Now, it doesn't mean a majority of votes, he means a majority of seats. So, let me just get some of the quotes from this interview. He also had a little moan about, I think it was Alba pointed out that the SNP spent lots of time after making a decision last year. I think it was at a conference, or it might have been whatever, but it was decided by the party that they would submit new logos for ballot papers, and they put all this stuff into the Electoral Commission. It was all agreed. And then it had just the same logo, and it had the words independence or for independence. There was two versions. And he made a big song and dance about it at the time. But now that the ballot papers are getting produced, they've asked for just the logo, so no word independence, right, on the logo. And he was saying, but independence is always on the ballot for the SNP, because he's trying to just, play this one down, which I thought was a bit bizarre. So he said independence will be on the ballot paper in this election, according to the SNP leader at Westminster. Stephen Flynn told ITV News in an interview on Tuesday that if his party wins a majority of seats in Scotland, they will deliver another referendum on independence within 5 years. Now, he's guaranteeing that, but it's not his decision to make. But we'll come back to that. He also said that he doubted that Sir Keir Starmer would follow the strategy of previous Conservative Prime Ministers in flatly rejecting the demands of the SNP if Labour wins at this election. Of course, independence is on the ballot paper, Mr Flynn said. Everyone knows what the SNP stands for. We believe in Scottish independence. What we will seek to do is win a majority of seats at this election, win as many seats as we possibly can right across Scotland, and we will seek to put into effect that mandate from the Scottish people as our party policy is. When pressed on how he would deliver this pledge, given the failures of previous SNP attempts, he said the difference here is we've had Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. We're soon going to have a Labour Prime Minister. Are you suggesting a Labour Prime Minister is going to follow the same tact as those three individuals and deny the people of Scotland the mandate that they provide to the SNP? A Labour Party spokesperson told ITV News that they would flatly reject any SNP request for another independence referendum should they win the election. Independence has defined Scottish politics for over a decade now. The UK government thought the 2014 referendum would settle the issue. In fact, it was just the beginning of an infused, energised generation of independence supporters. It reached fever pitch under Nicola Sturgeon's time as leader. That's because she drove it endlessly. Scottish National Party has been distancing itself from the idea, previously pitched by Sturgeon, that the general election would be a de facto referendum on the constitutional question. Now, for those of you that don't know, Nicola Sturgeon about 2 years ago stated that the next Westminster election, this one coming, would be a de facto referendum, whatever that meant. And what she said was if the Scottish people voted 50% plus, so 50% plus one vote, of the Scottish people voted for SNP, that would give them a mandate for a referendum. And although I don't agree with that notion, but, it's hard to argue against. So I sort of understood what Nicola Sturgeon was doing there. There was a plan of, and this is what she said to Scottish people. And then it would just be an argument between the Scottish Parliament and Westminster, and I would suggest that if that was the case, the SNP would have a fair argument, to be honest with you. However, Instead, the party has focused on what it calls ABC of the election: austerity, Brexit and the cost of living. Flynn's assertions today are the most bullish the party has been making this election about independence for Scotland. I believe we can be in the position where those powers to hold a referendum don't sit in Westminster but sit in Holyrood, and we would seek to put those powers into effect because it's the right thing to do, he told us. Polling indicates Scotland is split almost down the middle in independence, with recent numbers putting support for Scottish independence just below 50%. The SNP has not revealed its party manifesto yet. It's expected to publish it next week. Right, so now let's look at what Stephen's suggesting. Now, this is the exact same as Humza Yousaf stood up at their party conference last year and said, this is how we're going to get independence. John Swinney's been pushed on it once in the whole election campaign that I've seen, and he agreed with Humza's route. And now Stephen Flynn is pushing the same shite. Right? So what they plan is, they're saying is, if we get half or more of the seats at Westminster, now that would be 29 seats, that gives us a mandate to get a referendum. Now, to get 29 seats, 30 seats at Westminster, you could do that on 30-odd% of the vote. So what Stephen Flynn's expecting you to believe is, let's say they achieved that, which I don't think they will, right? And they probably don't think they will either, so it's easy to say. But if they did, let's hypothetically say they get 30 seats, right? He's then going to go as the leader of the Westminster SNP, if he gets voted in, and say, there you go, folks, we got 29 seats, we get 31 seats, whatever the figure is, we now demand a referendum in Scotland. And Westminster would quite rightly say, well, hold on a minute, you get 33% of the vote to win your 29 seats. How's that a mandate for anything? But we stood up and we said that if we get the majority of the seats, well, that's fine. That's how we vote governments. You know, it doesn't matter your percentage of the vote, the one with the most seat becomes a government. That's how it kind of works. But that's not how referendums work. It's not how you get to decide what you're doing. Who in their right mind in Westminster, never mind a party that's just confirmed they're not going to give Scotland a referendum, who in that Westminster government would agree with that? Your argument is, we've got 32.7% of the vote. We want a referendum because the majority of people in Scotland want independence. Well, based on what? Based on you getting a third of the vote? You would get hunted and quite rightly laughed out the building. So what we've got now is, we've got the SNP doing what the SNP always do. They A, tell people things that they actually can't achieve. And B, they put up fights that they know they're going to lose. We've already had loads of examples of this, right? Endless number of examples of this. Like the GRR. They knew that was going to get knocked back, but you know, they then can blame Westminster for blocking it, which thank God they did. So this is just another example. It is totally unachievable. It will never happen. They might not even get 29 seats. I doubt they will, going by the latest polls. But if they did, and they then took that notion to Parliament, they would get laughed at, quite rightly so. Out you go, Stephen. You're obviously, I don't know what you're doing, but you're putting something jagged into your body because that's not normal behaviour. That's what you would get told at Westminster by a party who will no doubt be a mixed government, who have already quite clearly categorically stated on no grounds are we going to in the next 5 years give you a referendum. But be Stevie, these pals here, we want a referendum. We've got a third of Scotland voted for this shite. Why would you do it? So if you are a nationalist in Scotland that wants independence, you're actually giving it to a mob that are just continually letting you down. Right now, as it stands today, the SNP do not have a manageable, achievable route to independence. But you guys keep voting for them, and all you're going to keep getting is the gravy train, the gravy train, the gravy train. How long does it take for the penny to drop that these people have killed your dreams? I mean, I know loads of people that understand that. In fact, there's a whole new political party based on that single ethos that SNP are talking shite, so they ain't going to achieve what they're saying. And there's an alternative now for nationalists to vote for. But I see day after day more and more people, the penny drop moment, the SNP have ripped the knitting right out it, because that's what they do. And the only people that have still got voting for them are the ones that they can shite in their tea and tell them it's hot chocolate, because it doesn't matter what the SNP say. These crackpots will lap it up. You know the ones that watched Braveheart and believed it to be a factual documentary? Those ones. They're just bonkers. So, the sooner we get this mob voted out, the sooner they're bankrupt, the sooner they're papped, right? And we can let the big boys, and big girls, the adults, just run Scotland for the benefit of Scotland. The better. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing. And as long as you're not the SNP, Stephen Flynn, or any of these crackpots that are left, everybody else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.